Gundam.tk presents Age-2 Normal. What's up again, everybody? It's Robert124, 2Rs2Bs, GundamReviews.net, and yes, the Age-1 could not transform and the Age-2 could. So there was an extra part to this review, but you've already seen everything from the unbox to the mobile suit. But let's take a look at all the good and bad things here before I give my final verdict on the HG Age-2 Normal. So to kick things off with some of the negatives that I found, first of all, when you're cutting out some of these parts from the sprues, you're going to notice that some of them are connected by as many as 5 plastic points. And that just means when you're cutting off a lot of blue, especially on the chest parts, that you're going to have either some sanding to do, or if you're like me, you're just going to shave it off with the modeler's knife and then put some blue ink over it from a Gundam marker. But anyway, you're just going to have more points there, and even though most of them are well hidden, there's still a few that are going to stand out a little bit more than you'd expect for a modern kit. There's also a bigger problem here with these wing parts where I had 2 of them split on me. Or not split on me, but when I went to bend them, and you shouldn't really bend them it seems, there's a little tiny peg inside there and it's not really enough to stop them. So you'd think that they could have put on a square mount or something instead of a round mount so that you wouldn't even be inclined to. Of course, it's my own fault for not following the directions, but on the other hand, I also have the slight bonus of being able to move these things. So anyway, I'm not horribly unhappy with the result because I haven't had any weight issues with it yet. So anyway, just something for you to be careful of when you're doing it. Now, when it's going to come around here, the shoulders, they had a choice. They could have gone with a hollow, upside-down U-type shoulder, but what they did instead is they went with a solid white shoulder here, and then you're going to put on a gray seal, which is supposed to imitate the parts that are inside. Now, I don't think those gray parts would have looked horrible if they were inside hollow. It would have showed off a little bit of the mechanisms, and I don't think that necessarily would have been a bad thing. But the gray seal there, you can see a little bit of white underneath. It's not going to fit perfectly top to bottom. It's just a little bit too short there, and you can see some white on either side. Anyway, it just comes across as being a little bit cheap, and the shoulders, you just think that they could have come up with something a little bit better than a few cents worth of stickers. Now, other problems are just when it is in its mobile suit mode. To attach the Hyperdod's rifle, you can ignore all that speculation I had earlier about attaching something to the chest for a future wear. All you're going to do is plug in the Hyperdod's there, and because of that, you're going to have a pretty ugly chest, especially when you go back and compare it to something like the Age-1. It's not focused here, but I thought that chest looks really good compared to this one, and this one just comes across as looking a little bit cheap. It's also going to have a problem with the Dod's rifle itself. It's got good playability, but it's just going to look a little bit dull. The original Dod's rifle had some nice green seals all over the place, and if you bend them, you had that just the 2 positions. They look good. This one, it's just very blue, very gray, which is effective in terms of this mode, the Strider form, just a little disappointing in mobile suit mode. But let's talk about the biggest 2 issues for this. One is just being that it is a parts former, and some people will hate the fact that you're going to have to swap the limbs on and off when you're transforming it into Strider form, and they're going to have to give you that extra gray part. You can see that the hip attachment isn't being used, it's just down there. So bonus is that they're going to allow you to attach it to the action base, but it would have been better. The arms, like I said, you don't necessarily have to pop them out if they hadn't included that white part at the end covered up with a seal. And for the waist, you actually don't have to detach that. So there aren't as many parts former things as you'd think, except for that big gray part, which many people will have a problem with. But overall, for me, it's not the end of the world, except one thing that I'm not too crazy about is that when you see it in mobile suit mode, I think the robot looks pretty good. I mean, as an MS, he looks good, very colorful, very detailed, especially for a high grade. The only thing is those shoulder parts, they've grown on me somewhat, but they really do seem superfluous, and they're just going to hang there and just sort of be in the way. And the fact that they're not as dynamic and posable as you'd think just means that this guy is going to stand out in a little bit strange way compared to some of the other Gundams as just a mobile suit with these 4 arbitrary things hanging off his shoulders. So enough with the negatives and on to the positives, with the first ones being just how well these legs seem to work in terms of practical matters. It's cool that you can bend down the toes. It's going to look great in aerial poses. I thought the front would be too white, but with that much blue up on the top, I don't find that to be a problem. Those blue parts on the back are going to add a lot of color. And then as we move up the rest of the body, the waist has tons of color variations. These parts, you can actually bend them forward. You can flip them up when it's in Strider form. It's got all 4 of the main Gundam colors in there. And that chest is fantastic. For the transformation that you can bend it down and slide it up so easily to reattach it is going to work great. And the shoulders and the head, I thought it was going to be a little bit strange when I put it into Strider form to pop the head down. But in fact, the shoulders actually end up supporting the white part and holding it up, if you will, when it's in MS mode. Whereas when it goes into Strider mode, then it can just actually bend down there because the shoulders are just going to get enough out of the way. Now, I really like the shoulders here with this blue part, and especially the double bend there. I think it's going to look good, whether it's in its up or down part. Like I said, I'm not crazy about the gray seals on the inside, but you see nothing of that when it's in mobile suit mode. And these blue parts, they're pretty good in terms of the mobility. You can only rotate them and bend them on that gray part, which is not a polycap, so you're getting something a little bit more sturdy, though it's not ABS. And I do have to also give it credit for the fact that even though when you break something and you're putting a Gundam together, all you can think about is, oh no, how am I going to deal with this? But in this case, the fact that I broke 2 parts, I'm actually sort of happy with it, because then you can fiddle with these and change and add that many more poses. The Dodge rifle is also going to be great. I think it's the right size, the perfect proportions. The blue, it's going to lock into place. You can see that it's going to fit firmly around the wrist there. Pretty much everything about this, including even the race car spoiler with that simple bit of gray back there, is going to look great. But the real winner has to be up top. Where looking at this, you would swear that it was not a 1/144th kit. I'm talking just look how many colors there are visible there. And I'm talking up on the head where you've got the gray on the back and you've got the white, the red jewel there that's going to show through in 3 pieces, in 3 places, including under the eyes. And the fact that you've got the good seal there for age and the off-colored ones there, lining opportunities, and the Raphael gray piece underneath. This is better than 1/100th non-grades by far, and right up there in terms of quality for sheer number of color applications. It may look a little bit too rainbowy for some people, but I'm a real fan of the way it looks up here. How about the other bonuses that you're going to get, like the fact that you're going to get an action base, which you can use well in both modes, and it's going to have these little things. Yeah, it's not perfect, but you can keep the extra manipulators under there. Great that they throw it in. The closed fist is looking good, as is the open dynamic hand. And this part is still better to have, and the fact that you can put it on here and keep it out of the way is great. I'm also a big fan of the way the beam sabers mount in there. They're very easy to slide in and out, and everything is going to work. You can have the 2 of them. Adds even more color to an already colorful kit. And the beam sabers look good along with the Dodge rifle. The shield is a little bit disappointing, but then again, who's going to see it under this much armament hanging off it all over the place? So final verdict, was it fun to put together? It absolutely was. Does it look good as a mobile suit? I'm going to say certainly. If you can take away those parts, and they're even growing on me in terms of liking them. The transformation is easy and fun, and I really like the way it looks in Strider form. It's going to look good and hide the head pretty well, and the fact that it's just a Gundam. Throw in all these bonuses, and does it capture the power of the anime? Well, I think it certainly is dynamic. You can do a million different things with this, and whatever we're going to see in the anime from the Age-2, I think you're going to be able to recreate it in this high-grade form. The only thing that I've got to say is I really flash back to the 00 Riser, where I love the high grade, it could do everything, and this guy can also do everything, and I always think with the Master Grade 00 Riser that there's just too much complexity in there for something with all that extra plastic to deal with. I think this one may be better off in Master Grade form just because these things are not going to add as much weight as the Riser does. They're certainly designed to be a lot lighter, but basically if you like the high grade 00 Riser, I think you would very much like this Age-2. And the transformation is a lot of fun, and basically, I really can take away all those negatives that I said in the beginning and just focus on the positives because they totally outweigh it in terms of importance. But it's on to the always fun future speculation, where we've already seen the Age-1 with its 3 wears, and we've seen the Age-3 with 3 wears, and the Age-2 we only know of 2 so far. The double bullets, I'm wondering how that's going to be. I do like the idea of getting rid of probably the most problematic visual thing is those things, although for some people's eyes I'm sure they'd be the best part. But putting on big red guns on the shoulders actually seems a little bit appealing, and it looks good in Strider form for that too. I'm a big fan of the body, but it is going to be a little bit dull compared to the Age-1 where you were building outside of the chest and the head. Everything about building them, thank you Sparrow for falling over there, was new, whereas with the Age-2, if you're just swapping the things that you put on the shoulders, it's going to be a little bit dull in comparison. Perhaps the 3rd form will save it from that kind of mediocre fate. We've already got master grades of all 3 wears of the Age-1 coming, which means I'm sure we'll be getting them for the Age-2, especially if all they have to do is put on the shoulders. I wonder if we couldn't be seeing a master grade double bullet and a normal combo or something like that. I guess we'll have to see what they do with Age-3 first. But in the meantime, I will be picking this up. I'm not sure about the 1/48th form, if it's done enough to sell me on that. It may have even more problems in the larger size. But anyway, this high grade, absolutely a treat to build, and I hope that you enjoy putting it together as well. But as always, that's just my opinion, so why don't you let me know yours down below so that people can choose from a whole variety and hear all the good and bad things that everybody thinks about this kit. Anyway, everybody, Robert184, Gundam.tk, thanks for checking this out, and stay tuned for lots more Age-1, Age-2, Age-3, and everything else. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. See ya. The first time Luffy saw the Age-2 transform, that was his reaction. He was very impressed. Well, I think your SD is going to be a lot of fun too.